Hello everyone and welcome to today's video where I have made a mod pack that's centered around the Scape and Run Parasites mod. This mod adds a parasitic infection that slowly devours the world's mobs and creates some pretty dangerous new monsters. Luckily, the early phases of this infection are pretty slow, so we are going to spend most of this episode gearing up and preparing for the onslaught that is to come. But to make the content for these first few episodes still interesting to watch, I've gone ahead and added a bunch of mods to spice up the gameplay. I won't spoil too much, so I hope you enjoy, and let's get right into this. The first thing I needed was shelter, so luckily there was a village pretty close to spawn, so that was nice. It had a blacksmith with some basic loot, a little bit of obsidian, and a saddle, a couple saplings, nothing too great, but not bad either. I also went ahead and helped myself to the village crops. I ended up burrowing into the mountainside beside the village to make my base instead of living in one of the pre-made houses, because one of the mods in this mod pack is Epic Siege, and Epic Siege basically makes monsters ridiculously overpowered, and they tend to target villages now, so I didn't want to live directly inside of it. Now, you might think that the nether portal on the right of my base is too small to actually function, but I have a mod that allows me to make nether portals as small as I want, so I only need one more obsidian to actually get it working. Unfortunately, it seemed that my base was still too close to the village, as mobs busted down my front door and poured into my base as soon as night fell, and I had to retreat to the mines. As the sound of agonized screams outside of my makeshift home died down, I decided that it was probably daytime and busted out of the little mine that I had blockaded. Unfortunately, it was raining. The worst kind of weather for this kind of mod pack, because it means that mobs are still going to spawn at a pretty high rate, which was not good for us. But I did manage to get some water and lava to make the last block of obsidian that I needed, made another portal, blocked it off from the rest of my base with a little airlock thing just to make sure that no parasites got through the nether portal, because nether and overworld parasite spawns are separate. Now, this might not make much sense right now, but once the parasites in the overworld get to a later phase, this will become very, very important, and I'll elaborate more on it, but we're not there yet, so let's keep going. I made a makeshift base in the nether that I will come back to at some point, and then I decided it was probably a good time to stop and add some new mods, so that's exactly what I did. Now, unfortunately, after I added these new mods, I kinda forgot to hit the record button, so there's no footage for this next section, so I'll give you a brief little 30-second overview of what happened. Basically, I went back through the nether portal. It ended up taking me about 80 blocks away from my base, which was not ideal. I thought I lost my base. I had to find it later, but anyways, I started mining out a new one. I went mining way deep down, got a bunch of diamonds, crafted up a modded helmet made of materials from a Parasite mod called the Twisted Helmet. It wasn't that hard to craft. So I restacked. I also made a transmutation table from Project E, which was one of the mods that I added. I made a diamond halberd from Spartan Weaponry, which was also one of the mods I added. So yeah, I got a lot of stuff. And then I found my base again, and I moved all of my stuff from the new base that I had been making into the old base. And that about sums up my second session with the mod, and luckily for the third session, I do have some footage, so we're gonna cut back to that right now. As soon as I opened my front door, I was immediately faced with several creatures that were from the Scape and Run Parasites mod. The little spidery guys are called Ruptors. They're pretty weak. They're what I made my Twisted Helmet out of. The red guy, though, that incomplete form thing, that meant that the parasites were spreading rapidly. That was not good for us. We needed more time to prepare. So I figured that I needed to craft a full set of twisted gear, so I needed to find more Ruptors. Once I had killed all the Ruptors next to my base, I decided it was time for a little bit of exploring. Hopefully I would find some more Ruptors around the way to craft more twisted gear, as I was running out of time at this point to get geared up. And iron and diamond and the one twisted piece of gear that I had was definitely not going to cut it against some of the later parasites. So I went for a hike through the woods near my base, killed a couple animals because they're just going to get assimilated by the parasite later, which is not going to be fun for me or the animals, so better to put them out of their misery now. That wasn't all too interesting, but what I found next would be very interesting. There was a village literally less than 100 blocks from my base, which I luckily saw out of the corner of my eye, and this would prove to be very, very useful. So I immediately saw this guy with a red name tag, and red name tags in MCA do not mean good things. So I killed him, That was pretty easy. He didn't even attack me. Then I saw this hero. Now this hero gave me this idea that if I just gathered a bunch of these heroes, since they have swords, I could use them against later stages of the infection to kill off all the infected. So I went back home with 2 heroes in tow because I didn't want it to get too dark bringing them back. I would come back for more later anyway, since now I knew where the village was. Hopefully it just wouldn't get destroyed. Unfortunately, it got too dark before I got back to my base, and I had to hunker down in a little hidey hole because I couldn't find my base again. When morning broke, I had to kill a bunch of these little spiders to get out of my little hidey hole that I had temporarily made. Also had this weird haunted cow thing outside, killed that too. Then there was more spiders, and these spiders were starting to get annoying. They tanked a bunch of hits even from the diamond halberd. They were hard to hit in the first place because they were tiny, and they somehow, for some reason, did a whopping percentage of damage, even more than the parasites were doing at this point. Now, the parasites obviously later are going to be one-shotting me and stuff no matter my gear, but for now, these little spider things were for some reason my most formidable opponent. And they weren't even from the Parasites mod. So that just goes to show what mods like Epic Siege, which I've added for the difficulty, are going to do to those later phases of Parasites and make them basically unkillable. Since those little spider guys weren't even supposed to be that hard, and now they are. Anyways, I realized that right over the hill was my base, so I locked the heroes inside of my base, then decided that I wanted to go back to the village. Unfortunately, the heroes started killing each other, and I don't know why, so I decided that I was going to have to lock them up separately in the future. And then it turned out to be too dark to actually go back to the village, so all I could do was mine away and mine some rooms for them to temporarily be housed in, as I plan on moving them later to the Nether for safekeeping, building them a little village of sorts. But for now, I was going to make them these temporary rooms under my base, until I could get them better housing, preferably in the Nether, which would protect them from any parasites that could kill them before I use them for my master plan. At this point though, I was starting to have some doubts in my plan because I had already seen the heroes try to kill each other. In fact, they had successfully killed each other. But I was just hoping that maybe when I released them to fight the parasites, that they would target the parasites instead of each other. But it still sat in the back of my mind that there was a possibility that this plan wouldn't work at all and I would be royally screwed. I brought them back home anyway though, but it turns out you can't actually change their profession, so I was stuck with only a couple heroes. I still think I'll end up making a village for them though at some point, since I've already gone through the trouble of collecting all these villagers. It's just probably not going to be my priority for now. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, because those parasites are about to get really crazy and you're not going to want to miss that.